I always thought I knew my wife inside and out. 19 years of marriage will do that to a man. So when she said she was having a small get-together with a couple co-workers and asked me to take our son, who's on the spectrum, out for the night, I didn't think much of it. I trusted her. Still, something didn't sit right. So I decided to come home a little earlier than planned. What I walked into that night flipped my world upside down. In our kitchen, right where we made meals and memories, I uncovered months' worth of lies. And in an instant, everything started to unravel. Name's Jason Walker. I'm 43, and I run a pest control business here in the suburbs of Albuquerque. Not exactly a dream job, but it's honest work. It keeps food on the table and the lights on, and that's good enough for me. My wife, Emily, works downtown. She's a coordinator at a nonprofit, something she's always been passionate about. We've got a son, Caleb. He's 11, and he's on the autism spectrum. Smart as a whip, that boy. Ask him anything about trains, and he'll talk your ear off. Knows more about locomotives than most railroad engineers. Raising him hasn't always been easy, but we figured out early on that routine and patience were key. That Friday evening started out just like any other. I was wrapping up a termite job for Mrs. Whitaker. Little buggers had chewed up half her garage when my phone rang around 5:40. It was Emily. "Hey, honey," she said, with a kind of cheeriness that felt a little too bright, if you know what I mean. "Some of the gals from work are thinking about coming over tonight." She made it sound casual. "Just a small thing," she said. "Order a couple pizzas, hang out, catch up." I was wiping sweat off my face and loading gear into the truck. Sounded harmless enough. "How many we talking about?" I asked. "Oh, just Rachel from accounting, maybe Megan and her husband. Nothing wild. Real low-key." Then she hesitated. "Actually, why don't you take Caleb to your brother's tonight? You know how he gets with strangers around. And hey, maybe some guy time would be good for you too." That should have been my first clue something was off. Emily knows how much Caleb depends on his routines, especially over the weekend. Switching things up just for a casual hangout. That wasn't like her. Still, she had a point. Too much noise can overwhelm him. So I asked, "You sure? It's kind of last minute to spring this on Nate." "Already called him," she said. "He's excited. Said he just got a new model train and was hoping to show Caleb anyway." Everything she said made sense on the surface. She'd been under a lot of pressure at work, and honestly, she deserved a night to kick back. Caleb would love the trains, and I figured a change of pace might even be good for both of us. "All right," I told her, firing up the truck. "I'll swing by, pick up Caleb, and head to Nate's. You girls have fun." "Thanks, Jason. You're the best. Love you." "Love you too." On the drive home, though, that uneasy feeling kept creeping back in. Something about how quickly she'd planned Caleb's sleepover, how eager she seemed to get us out of the house. It just felt strange. Still, after 19 years together, you build a kind of trust. I brushed the doubt aside. I dropped Caleb off at Nate's around 7:40. My brother was practically bouncing with excitement to show off the newest piece in his model train collection, a beautiful replica of a diesel engine from the 1960s. Caleb's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Watching him soak in every little detail made me feel like I'd made the right call. "Appreciate you taking him last minute," I told Nate, as we stood in his garage-turned-train station. "Are you kidding?" Nate said, grinning as he gently tousled Caleb's hair. "He's a blast. We'll probably be up all night talking train horsepower and gear ratios." The original plan was to grab a beer, maybe catch the game over at O'Brien's Tavern with the guys. But as I pulled away from Nate's place, that weird gut feeling came back, stronger this time. Something about Emily's tone on that call, the way she rushed things, it was gnawing at me. She hadn't just asked us to leave. She'd practically pushed us out. I tried calling a couple buddies, Brian, then Keith, but both calls went straight to voicemail. So much for a guy's night. Then I remembered. I'd left my good Milwaukee drill in the garage, the one I needed for a job at the Whitmans the next morning. Figured I'd swing by, grab it real quick, maybe say hi to Emily's coworkers, then be on my way. Our place was just 20 minutes away. But the moment I turned onto our street, I knew something wasn't right. Cars. Everywhere. What should have been a calm little neighborhood looked like the mall on Black Friday. I counted 7, maybe more, parked up and down the block. I didn't recognize a single one. For a small gathering of work friends, it felt way over the top. I had to park 4 houses down just to get a spot. As I walked toward the house, I could hear music pulsing through the air. Not the soft background jazz Emily usually played during dinner parties. This had a heavy beat that thumped right through your chest. What the heck? I muttered to myself. The front windows were glowing, and shadows moved inside more than just a couple coworkers by the look of it. Emily said it'd be a quiet night with friends. But standing there on the sidewalk, staring at my own house, it was becoming clear that something else was going on, something I wasn't supposed to see. I walked up to the door, keys in hand, and paused. Part of me thought about knocking, giving Emily a heads up. But the other part, the bigger part, reminded me this was my home. I shouldn't have to ask permission to walk through my own front door. So I took a deep breath, slid the key into the lock, and stepped inside. What I walked into looked nothing like the quiet little hangout Emily had pitched over the phone. The moment I stepped through the door, it felt like a punch to the gut. This wasn't some relaxed evening with a few coworkers. This was a full-on party. Strangers packed every inch of my living room, holding drinks, chatting over music that thumped like a nightclub speaker. The volume was way over the line for our peaceful little neighborhood, and the air was thick with the smell of booze and pricey cologne. Standing in my own doorway, I felt like I just wandered into someone else's house. These weren't Emily's usual nonprofit coworkers, not by a long shot. Half the folks there looked like they'd just left some fancy downtown lounge. Guys decked out in designer shirts, women in dresses that probably cost more than I make in a week. And then I spotted her, Emily, over by the kitchen island. And she wasn't standing alone. There was a guy with her, someone I'd never seen before, and he was standing way too close. Mid-30s, maybe. Younger than me. Lean, fit, confident, the type that lives in the gym and knows he looks good. He had that smirk that just screamed, "I'm bad news." His hand rested on the small of Emily's back, like he belonged there. But what really hit me wasn't him, it was how Emily was acting. She was laughing at something he'd said, and not the forced kind you give to be polite. No, it was that full, genuine laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. She leaned into him, touched his arm while she talked, looked up at him the way she used to look at me. My fists clenched on instinct. 19 years together, and I'd never seen her look at another man like that. I started moving through the crowd, slipping between people like I was back in a crawlspace chasing down rats, second nature from the job. No one really paid me any mind. I was just another face in the party haze. But the closer I got, the clearer their conversation became. "You're awful, Julian," Emily said with a little laugh, lightly swatting his chest. "I can't believe you said that to your boss." Julian. Of course his name was Julian. Sounded like the kind of guy who stirred up trouble just for fun. "What can I say?" he replied smoothly. "Life's too short to play it safe." His voice oozed charm, the kind that always comes with strings attached. Sometimes you just gotta go after what you want. The way he looked at her when he said that, it made my stomach twist. This wasn't harmless watercooler chatter. This was something else entirely. And it was happening in my kitchen, under my roof, while I was supposed to be out of sight and out of mind. "Emily." My voice cut through the noise like a blade. Both their heads turned. Emily's face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. For a moment, just a second, she looked scared. Then, almost like flipping a switch, she put on that fake smile I'd come to know too well over the years. "Jason, you're back early," she said, trying to sound chipper. Too chipper. "I thought you and Caleb were staying with Nate tonight." Plans changed. I kept my eyes locked on hers, then shifted them over to Julian. "And who's this?" Julian didn't flinch. If anything, he looked like he was enjoying the drama. He stepped forward, hand outstretched, way too confident for my liking. "Julian Duval," he said, like he was proud of it. "I work with Emily at the foundation." His handshake was firm, deliberate, the kind of grip meant to show dominance. "She's told me a lot about you." "I'll bet she had." "Funny. She's never mentioned you," I said, turning back to Emily, who was now nervously fiddling with her wine glass. "I thought this was just going to be a small thing with a couple of coworkers." "Well, you know how these things go," she said quickly, almost too quickly. Word got out. People brought friends. It just sort of grew. "Grew," I repeated, letting the word hang there like a challenge. "Into what, exactly?" "Because from where I'm standing, this looks more like a club scene than a cozy night in." Julian laughed. Actually laughed. Like I was a punchline. "Hey man, no harm in letting people blow off some steam," he said. "Life's all about enjoying the ride." I turned toward him, full focus now. 22 years of crawling through attics and dealing with every type of customer you can imagine had taught me how to read folks, and this guy? He was flashing warning signs from head to toe. From the expensive watch on his wrist to the way he kept one hand just a little too close to Emily's back. "You seem real at home here," I said, voice calm but with an edge that wasn't hard to miss. How long have you and my wife been working together? That one landed. Emily's eyes widened, and for the briefest moment, Julian's confident smile cracked. Just for a second. But I caught it. We collaborate on a few projects, he replied, smooth again. Emily's incredibly talented, very dedicated to her work. The way he dragged out the word dedicated made my jaw tighten. I had to stop myself from swinging right then and there. But I wasn't about to lose control in front of this guy. Not yet. I'm sure she is, I said, stepping forward until I was close enough that Julian had to tilt his head up slightly to keep eye contact. Tell me something, Julian. Do all your work collaborations involve touching your coworkers like that? Jason, that's enough. Emily snapped. Her voice had a sharper edge now, defensive. You're being ridiculous. Julian was just what? I cut her off before she could spin some excuse. My patience was hanging by a thread. Just getting a little too cozy with my wife while I happened to be out of town? Just making yourself at home with my furniture, my food, my family photos hanging on the wall. Everything around us, the noise, the chatter, the clinking glasses, started to fade. It was like the whole party hit pause. People were turning to look, conversations dying off one by one. Good. Let them watch. Let them get a real clear picture of who Julian Duval really was. Look, buddy, Julian said, and that slick tone of his had turned just a hair sharper now. I think you're misreading things. Oh, am I? I stepped in closer. My voice dropped low, and the heat behind it wasn't hard to miss. 'Cause from where I'm standing, it sure looks like you're working your way into another man's marriage. And in my experience, that makes you either real dumb or real bold. I tilted my head, staring him down. So which is it, Julian? He stood up a little straighter, trying to pull himself together. I could see the gears turning behind those polished eyes. He was weighing his options, back off or double down on whatever stunt he'd been pulling with Emily. Look, Jason, he said, using my name like we were old high school pals. I think you're misunderstanding things. Emily and I, we work together on this youth outreach project. That's all. We're colleagues. Colleagues, I repeated slowly, like I was tasting something rotten. Is that what they're calling it these days? When a guy puts his hand on another man's wife? Jason, stop. Emily stepped between us like she was breaking up a playground fight, voice soft and strained. The same tone she used when our son was having one of his meltdowns. You're making a scene. These are my coworkers. I looked around. A room full of strangers staring back, some confused, some pretending not to care, others watching like it was primetime drama. Didn't bother me one bit. I turned back to Emily. How long? I asked her, cutting through the noise, through the crowd, through the lies. How long has this been going on? Nothing's going on, she snapped, too fast, too forced, and her voice cracked halfway through. You're being paranoid. I let out a laugh, but it wasn't the funny kind. Paranoid. I echoed. You tell me it's just a quiet girls' night, but instead you throw a party with a bunch of strangers and let some guy act like you're a couple and somehow I'm the one who looks weird? That's when Julian stepped in again, chest puffed a bit. Hey, he said, firm, watch how you talk to her. And that was it. That protective tone, the one that said he was the one looking out for her, pushed me over the edge. I moved fast, and suddenly we were face to face. I could feel the heat off his breath. Are you seriously telling me how to talk to my own wife? My voice was calm, but cold. In my own house? I could feel the crowd tighten in around us, cell phones probably popping out, someone maybe already streaming this to social media, but I didn't care. Not one bit. This man had crossed a line, and I was done pretending. Julian, don't, Emily said, her hand on his arm. Still touching him. Still choosing him. Even with me standing right there. That touch? That gesture? It told me everything I hadn't wanted to know. So that's it, I said, stepping back just a little, looking at both of them. That's really how it is. Emily's face went ghost white. Jason, you don't understand. No, I cut her off. I understand plenty. I pulled out my phone and started dialing, calm as ever. What are you doing? Julian asked, some of that swagger finally slipping out of his voice. I'm calling the police, I said. There's someone in my house crossing the line and acting way out of place. That hit hard. His face went from confident to concerned real fast. All around us, guests were already heading for the exits, not waiting around to find out what kind of mess they might be in once law enforcement showed up. Jason, hang up, Emily begged. Please, let's just talk. Talk. I looked at her like she'd lost her mind. You mean like how you talked to me about this little girl's night? Like that? Julian raised his hands like he was trying to calm down a grizzly bear. Okay, man, no need to call the cops. I'll go, all right. It's fine. You bet you will, I said, still holding the phone to my ear, though I hadn't pressed call yet. But before you do, I want answers. His jaw tightened, but I could see the panic behind his eyes. How long have you been hanging around my wife, Julian? It's not like that, he said, but the way he said it sounded like even he didn't believe it. Oh yeah? Then what is it like? I stepped in again, close enough to see the little twitch in his cheek. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a whole lot like you've been using your nonprofit gig as a pipeline to married women. That the angle? Show up with your sad backstory and your press shirts, and see who needs emotional support. His face turned red, and it wasn't just embarrassment. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? I turned back to Emily, who was still standing there like she'd forgotten how to speak. Tell me, sweetheart, how many late nights did Julian help you with that youth outreach program? How many strategy coffees? How many texts about work? About feelings? She didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Yeah, I muttered. That's what I thought. I turned back to Julian and let the silence stretch before I laid it down. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of my house, now, and you're going to stay the hell away from my wife. Not just at parties. Everywhere. Socially, professionally, doesn't matter. You and her. Done. Professionally, too, I said, steady and cold. Find someone else to buddy up with on your little passion projects. You can't dictate who Emily works with, Julian shot back, trying to pull together what was left of his ego. Watch me. I raised my phone again, not bluffing this time. I know people, Julian. In the nonprofit world. People on boards. People who cut checks. People who don't like hearing about staffers who get a little too friendly with their colleagues. I saw it land. His jaw clenched, and for a second, he looked like he might swing back with something, but he didn't. Because deep down, he knew he was beat. He had nothing left. After a long, awkward pause, he turned to Emily. I'll call you later, he said, quiet now. No, I cut in. Firm. Final. You won't. He looked at me, gave me one last look like he still wanted to believe he had some power in this, then shoved through the crowd toward the door. I watched him leave. A few other guests took the hint and followed him out. Funny how fast a party clears out when things get real. In just a few minutes, the house went from loud and crowded to dead quiet. Just me and Emily standing there, surrounded by half-eaten appetizers, cheap decorations, and the hollow shell of what used to be our marriage. We need to talk, she said after a long, tense silence. Yeah, I said. We do. The kitchen felt like unfamiliar ground now. She stood on one end, me on the other. Like two people who used to know each other once, a long time ago. The quiet was louder than the party had ever been. Empty wine glasses sat scattered across every surface. The kind of wine we didn't usually buy. The kind we couldn't afford without budgeting. Jason, I can explain, she said, voice small, unsure. Can you? I picked up one of the glasses, held it up like evidence. Can you explain why you lied to me about tonight? Why you let him touch you like that? Why you've been living a whole other life behind my back, while I've been working myself to the bone for this family? She flinched. Good. Let it land. It's not what you think, she said, barely audible. Then tell me what it is. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, heart pounding. Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like my wife's been having an affair with her coworker, and using our son as an excuse to get me out of the house. Don't bring Caleb into this. He's already in this, I snapped. My voice broke through the stillness, sharper than I meant, but I didn't walk it back. You used him, Emily. You knew I'd take him to Nate's. You knew I'd do it without question because I thought it was about his sensory issues. Her eyes welled up. Tears started rolling. I didn't care. Not anymore. How long? I asked again, quieter this time. And don't lie to me. She hesitated. 7 months, she whispered. 7 months. 7 months of lying. Of sneaking around. Of her coming home to me, kissing me, making dinner like everything was fine. Letting me be close to her while her heart belonged to someone else. 7 months, I repeated. I said it slow, like I was trying to understand the math. Jesus, Emily. I tried to stop it, she said, voice shaky but rising. I tried to end it. More than once. But Jason, our marriage. When was the last time you looked at me like Julian does? When was the last time you made me feel like I mattered? I stared at her like she'd grown 2 heads. Are you actually blaming me for your affair right now? I'm not blaming you, she said quickly. I'm saying we've been broken for a long time. We're just roommates, raising a kid, paying bills. There's no fire anymore. So you found it with Julian, I said, already knowing the answer. Yes, she said. No hesitation. No shame. He makes me feel alive again. He makes me feel beautiful. Wanted. Like I matter. And what about Caleb? I asked, quieter now. What about the boy who needs both of us? Who needs stability? Her face cracked. I love Caleb. I'd never hurt him. But you'd hurt me. You'd blow up our family because some guy made you feel pretty again. I walked over to the kitchen table, where she kept her laptop. She watched me, confused, nervous. I opened it, pulled up our bank accounts. What are you doing? She asked. Giving you a little reality check, I said, scrolling through the numbers. Since you've been off chasing butterflies with Julian, maybe you forgot how this life actually gets paid for. I spun the screen toward her. See that? That's our mortgage, $2, $700 a month. Paid by my pest control business. This? Caleb's therapy, $550 a week. Insurance covers half, but I still pay $280. Every single week. She looked away, but I wasn't done. Car payments. Both cars. Because yours is newer and more reliable. Because I wanted you to have the dependable one for Caleb's appointments. Not me. You. Internet, which we pay extra for so Caleb can use the high-speed connection for his learning programs. Groceries, God, the special dietary stuff alone could bankrupt a small country. Clothes. Doctor visits. Therapies. I clicked through screen after screen, letting the numbers speak for me. You want to know what your salary covers? I asked. Maybe a quarter of our monthly expenses. Maybe. I looked up at her, my jaw tight. The rest of it? That comes from me. From crawling under strangers' houses. From breathing in mold and brushing off rat droppings. From chasing termites and raccoons and whatever else people need gone. That's what pays for this life. I know you work hard, Jason, she said quietly. Do you? I cut her off, voice sharp. While you've been texting Julian about how he makes you feel alive, I've been working myself to the bone to give you a life where you even have the luxury to cheat. I flipped to the next tab. Retirement accounts. Emergency fund. Caleb's college savings, what little we'd managed to stash away. This isn't just about your feelings, Emily. This is our future. Our son's future. You want to throw it all away for what? A little excitement? Some extra spark in your day? It's not that simple, she said, but even she didn't sound convinced anymore. No, it is that simple. You had two choices. You either work on the marriage or you blow it up. You picked the second one. I closed the laptop with a soft click and looked her in the eye. So let's talk about what happens next. What do you mean? I mean divorce. Splitting assets. Figuring out custody. Child support. All of it. My voice stayed calm. Professional. Like I was discussing some boring work contract. You want to be with Julian? Fine. But you're about to find out what your half of this life really costs. Jason, please. I don't want a divorce. I want to fix this. Fix this. I laughed, but it was dry and bitter. How exactly do you fix 7 months of sneaking around? How do we fix the fact that you chose another man over your own family? We could try counseling. We could, together. I shook my head. Together would have been talking to me 7 months ago when you felt disconnected. Together would have meant going to marriage counseling, not jumping into someone else's arms. Together would have been honesty. I stood up. The weight in my chest felt like it might crack my ribs. I'm gonna go pack a bag. Stay at Nate's tonight. Tomorrow we figure out how to tell our kid that his parents are getting divorced because mommy needed more excitement in her life. Jason, wait. I'm done waiting, Emily. I'm done being patient and understanding and carrying this family on my back while you chase feelings. You made your choice. Now live with it. Nate didn't say anything when I showed up at his place with a duffel bag slung over my shoulder. Just handed me a cold beer and pointed to the couch. I stayed up most of the night, staring at the ceiling, while Caleb slept peacefully in the guest room down the hall. Around 6 a.m., my phone started going off. Emily. Text after text. I didn't need to open them to know the pattern, apologies, excuses, promises, guilt trips, threats. All the classic steps of someone who just lost control of their story. I skimmed the first line of each, then deleted them. Around 7:45, Caleb came padding out in his pajamas. Dad, want to see the new train switches me and Uncle Nate added? God, that kid. Pure light in the middle of all this wreckage. I followed him into the den where the train set took up half the room. He walked me through the updates with that focused energy, only he had hands fluttering, eyes locked on the tracks like nothing else existed. And in that moment, I remembered what did matter. Not Emily. Not Julian. Not the mess. Caleb. His future. His peace. Dad, are you sad about something? He asked suddenly, looking up at me with that sharp, honest look that always seemed to cut right through me. I'm working through some grown-up stuff, buddy. But nothing you need to worry about. Is it about Mom? She seemed different yesterday before the party. I exhaled. Even he picked up on it. Yeah, I said gently. It's about Mom. But listen, no matter what happens between me and her, we both love you more than anything. That's never going to change. He gave a small nod, like he was mentally filing that away. Then he went back to his trains. Crisis solved, 11-year-old style. At 9:15, Nate finally wandered out with a coffee mug and bedhead. I didn't even wait for him to ask. Emily's been having an affair. Man, he muttered, putting down his mug and sitting across from me. How long? 7 months. Found out last night. Guy was at the party. It was supposed to be all women. Nate let out a slow breath. What are you thinking? Divorce, I said. In full custody of Caleb if I can. She can have Julian. But she's not dragging my kid through this mess. Nate nodded. You're going to need a lawyer. A good one, I said. Someone who knows how special needs custody works. Caleb's different. This isn't just some standard case. I got a name, Nate said. Handled Greg's divorce when his ex tried to move their autistic daughter across state lines. He's solid. She's tough as nails. Doesn't mess around, Nate said. Good, I replied. Give me her number. We didn't talk much after that. Just sipped our coffee while Caleb reorganized his trains like it was his life's work. And in that quiet little moment, no drama, no guilt, no pretending, I realized this was what peace felt like. Just being. No lies. No tension. No eggshells underfoot. Then my phone buzzed again. A call this time. Emily. I answered it with all the warmth of a tax audit. What? Jason, please, come home. We need to talk. I ended it with Julian. I told him I'm choosing my family. I didn't even hesitate. Too late, Emily. It's not too late. We can fix this. No, we can't. I'll be by later to get more of my things. Caleb's staying here for now. I hung up, turned off the phone, felt nothing. 5 months later, I was in my new place. Smaller, sure, but clean. Quiet. Mine. Caleb had his own room, set up exactly how he liked it. Trains on the shelves, books in neat rows. Routine and calm, that's what he needed. That's what I needed too. The custody deal was structured to keep things steady. Weekdays with Emily, weekends with me. It wasn't perfect, but it gave Caleb predictability and gave me space from the mess. The divorce itself? Brutal. Emily tried to fight for everything, the house, full custody, even alimony. Claimed I was a workaholic more in love with his paycheck than his family. But her little Julian fantasy blew that story to hell. Multiple guests from that infamous party came forward, happy to tell what they'd seen. In the end, she settled. Half the assets. Shared custody. And then surprise, surprise, Julian vanished from the picture a couple months in. I guess dating a woman going through a rough custody battle with a child who needs extra care wasn't as exciting as sneaking around behind her husband's back. Go figure. Caleb adapted like a champ. He liked structure, and the weekend routine gave us something to both look forward to. No tension. No raised voices. Just trains, jokes, pizza, and peace. One Sunday afternoon, he held up his latest masterpiece. Dad, I finished the model of the Union Pacific Big Boy. I grinned. Looks perfect, buddy. Want to add it to the layout. We spent the rest of the day building tracks, eating pepperoni pizza straight from the box, and talking about trains, school, and whatever else popped into his head. That right there, that's what family should feel like. No secrets. No guilt. Just love and time spent well. Business-wise, things were finally clicking. Word got around about the work I did, on time, honest, no cut corners. Hired a couple part-time guys to help out. The extra income meant Caleb's therapy was covered without sweating every bill, and I was even able to start putting money back into his college fund. Around 6, Emily texted me. Can I pick up Caleb an hour early? Some family event. I asked Caleb. He shrugged. He was fine with it. So I helped him pack up his overnight bag, made sure his train magazines were tucked in, and waited by the door. When Emily showed up, she looked different. Not in a new haircut kind of way, just older. Worn out. The energy she used to carry around like a spotlight was gone. What was left looked like a woman who learned a hard lesson. "How's he doing?" she asked, watching Caleb zip his bag. "Good," I said simply. "Really good. He's thinking about trying out for the school's science Olympiad next year." She smiled a little. "That's wonderful." There was a pause. "Jason, I don't." I cut her off gently but firmly. "We're co-parents now. That's it. Let's keep it professional." She nodded slowly. Her lips pressed tight like she wanted to cry but wouldn't let herself. "You're right. I want you to know I messed up. I threw away something good." "Yeah," I said. "You did." She gathered Caleb's bag and he hugged me before heading out. I closed the door behind them and stood in the quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel angry or sad or even bitter. I felt content. No guessing what mood I'd come home to. No lies. No emotional landmines. Just me, my kid, my work, and a future I could actually look forward to. Caleb was thriving. My business was growing. And I was finally living a life built on something real: honesty, peace, respect. It took losing everything to see it clearly. But I hadn't lost at all. I'd been set free.